individuals and how did they look collectively, and dominant performance defensively. The numbers tell you that. You're not playing against, obviously, Justin Herbert or their starters or anything. So you got to keep everything in perspective, good or bad. But certainly better to talk about the good you need to keep in perspective rather than the bad you need to keep in perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it seemed like a really, really long game, especially for those of us that were.
It was dreadful.
There.
It was really long. It was hard to focus on after a while for me.
I think what I look for in all of these games, like in the preseason especially, and I think it's what Mike McDonald looks for, and that's how many different situations can we get to, like the kickoff thing we learned, and we'll talk about that, but I think we learned a little bit more about that. Get your team into certain situations, whether it's a fourth down going for it, or all the different things that can happen in a game. But the one thing that stood out to me, Bob, and it's just one word, is discipline. Mm-hmm. And I saw it with the defense in the coverage, and then you saw it. I texted you guys last night. My favorite play was the Holani touchdown. That was a cutback play, and it started weak side, and then he bent it back to the strong side. And on the strong side, which is away from where, and maybe it was designed, I haven't really heard one way or the other, but the two, Farrell Brown and Tyler Mabry, were blocking their tails off. And it was just so nice to see. And it was a good block. And, there was a debate about whether or not Mabry was holding. And I don't think he was, because he had his hand inside on the chest. But, the point is that you're on the backside and you're working just as hard as the blockers on the front side. And, to me, that's every single play. You need that kind of discipline. Saw a lot of it in the pass rush and the coverage. So, yeah, to me, it just was markedly different from what we saw last year as far as the defense goes. And I know it's a preseason game, but I like the design, and I like just in general the fact that there was lots of plays where you saw guys just with great discipline doing their jobs.
Yeah, there were certainly interesting things within the game itself that I thought in totality it was a preseason game. I mean, you're watching guys, especially as the game goes on, guys that are fighting just for a place on the roster that aren't starters or anything. So it was preseason, but it was disciplined. And after the game, Mike McDonald talked about his initial impressions of everything.
All right. Good to see everybody. I just say, hey, great first start. Just proud of the mentality, the focus that we had taking the game, the intent. It felt like the guys played really hard. Felt like they were focused. It's the first game, so just first time doing all the operation stuff for real. So I thought our operation was clean for the most part. I'm sure that, I got a bunch of notes written down as the game kind of unfolded there, things that we're going to want to chase and kind of debrief on. But overall, I'd just say I'd say it's a foundational first game. This is something that we want to build on. There'll be plenty of details on tape that we're going to, dive into, and can't wait to watch the tape and see how the guys did.
A couple of guys that stood out to me. It was cool to see Kobe Bryant come up with the pick. I mean, somebody we talked to in training camp, and a guy we've sort of wondered what is his place. He can be a corner, he can be a safety. How does he fit? Does he not fit? And cool to see him have that moment. Kenny McIntosh, I just like that guy. We've talked to him the past 2 years. Obviously, last year did not go the way he'd hoped with injury, and then when he got healthy, he just didn't really see any time at all. So cool to see him have the day that he had, 8 carries, 40 yards. He had a 14-yard carry in there, and then I thought Sam Howell looked pretty good. He had some moments out there. You go, okay, I see it. I mean, I'm not saying he's your franchise quarterback moving forward. I don't think he's a better option than Geno right now, but he had some moments where I think you felt pretty good, especially compared to, some of what was being talked about at practice. We talked about it. I only saw probably, maybe 3-4 series from him the entire training camp. And he looked pretty good in those moments, but I kept hearing about, no, he didn't look good here. He didn't look good in this situation. So going into this game, I was kind of curious all right, what do you get here? I thought he was pretty solid, and not every play was great, every pass was great, but it was better than maybe what I expected based on what we had heard about him at training camp.
Yeah, I thought he looked good. He looked in command, and a guy I really liked was D. Williams, the corner. I mean, we haven't talked about him much. By the way, Reek Woolen obviously had a great start. He had a couple of pass breakups, and he just looks. And I think they were talking on the broadcast of him being able to undercut the one throw it's freaky. I mean, he just has such long arms and legs and how quick he is. And just seeing him, the quickness that he has with those long legs, I mean, it's pretty impressive. So saw that. But yeah, D. Williams is a guy we haven't really talked about. And, he went out and had a couple of really good pass breakups running down the sidelines with receivers. And, I thought he looked really good. Yeah, so there was a lot to like. It's not like you saw a whole bunch of the starters, but the starters that you saw on the sidelines, they were very engaged in part of it. So much so that Devin Witherspoon almost picked off a pass on the sidelines over there.
Yeah,
there was like a throwaway pass, and he's over there. He jumps up in the air like he's going to catch it. But yeah, it was. I thought there was a lot to like for Mike Macdonald.
Yeah, it's to me, I had a keener eye on the defense because that was so problematic last year, and the year before, and the year before. So yeah, there was certainly curious to see what the defense looked like. Your guy John Radigan, he popped out there a little bit, had a sack out there. Derek Hall had a sack, so that was cool to see. A couple of guys you're wondering about. Tyrese Knight got a good chunk of time out there because Baker's out. I don't know that Baker would have played, but just good to see the rookie get out there. What was your impression of him as a linebacker, Tyrese Knight?
Yeah, I thought he looked okay. I mean, he has his detractors, that's for sure. But to me, I thought he did a good job. There was one time where I thought he caught a block, and maybe attack that a little bit more. But the one thing about him that I've noticed is that he reads offenses really well. He seems to know he doesn't fall for any of the motion or anything that is meant to deceive you. And, he finds a way to sift through. Radigan, I thought also, he looks surprisingly quick to me. Radigan, I there was a play he made where I was like, wow, the way he broke on that was I didn't realize he had that kind of quick. So I thought he looked really good. Another guy that stood out to me, and I don't know that he had like the best game, but Anthony Bradford had a couple of things that I saw on the All-22 where I'm like, wow. That guy with one arm just jamming a guy and just knocking him back. I mean, he is a big, powerful dude. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of little things that stood out. But, it was, I thought, just overall a pretty good performance. And they didn't have anything that went terribly wrong. And I just feel like it's the discipline of, I think, all of the stuff that Mike has been working on out there has really paid off. And they looked like a much better coach team.
Yeah, it good start. There's a lot to be there. To me, there wasn't anything I walked away going, ooh, that was bad, or that didn't look good. I mean, there's things, there are mistakes and what have you, and we'll get into all of that, but certainly much more positive in game one of the preseason.